Hey, what is going on, YouTube? Aaron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are in the Stalingrad, one of the many ships to receive a buff this update, and it was a pretty significant buff. If you guys did not know, the Stalingrad, aka the Stalin Chad, did not have HE before this update. Now, that being said, she was still a very tanky beast regardless, but I just felt like she got kind of power crept or forgotten about without that HE. But upon addition of the HE, we went out and played her, and boy, did we have a pretty epic game. 220 something thousand damage, and it could have been a lot more, but of course, we were placed on the blue team. Right off the bat, you will notice that we are angling away. It was a carrier game, so the potential for us to be spotted right away was significant. On top of that, we are running the Commander Ivan BD Lightful with Fear My Roar as a commander selection, as we get a beautiful salvo right off the rip on that broadside Giuseppe. We're probably right on the range, of citadeling battleships. You can absolutely tear through broadside battleships at like 14, 15 kilometers. We may not just have, right on the edge, potentially. And that is when we get a beautiful salvo on the mid-belt and superstructure of that GK. So right off the bat, 37,000 damage to two broadside battleships. So was the HE necessary? I think it was. We go over the stats commander guide and basically do a whole new review on this ship at the end of the video. But if you guys did not know, Ivan BD Lightful is a accuracy reload bound commander, and her fourth slot, Fear My Roar, increases your concealment for increased grouping, so you just get more accurate shells. So as a result, you have to position smartly, and that is what we do right here. This position allows us to get all guns on target while maintaining angle of our armor. And if you guys do not know, the Stalingrad, most of the Russian heavy cruisers, or Russian cruisers in general, have a massive citadel, but the Stalingrad especially. So you want to make sure that you keep your angle. But here, our two ships actually move forward. We do have the carrier on our side, but if you will notice, our two battleships at A and our destroyer at A are blind YOLO rushing through A, which is a good strategy if it's not a carrier game. The carrier can kind of keep you spotted and the other ships can maintain concealment. On top of that, you just don't want to become a man that quickly. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there was a group of gentlemen who rushed into B and on the map Shards and died, and then blamed me for not rushing in. Yes, being aggressive is certainly a strategy, but you want to feel out the game. There is not, I've said it so many times, but there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. There are certain things you can do every game, as for example, you will see me take this defensive type position a lot, but what this position allows me to do, it allows me to do many things. Right now, pending the carrier spotting, I know that I can turn around after we, let this salvo go by. And there's a perfect example of why this position is so good. I think we got one bounce there, and the way that we're angled in the ellipse of that ship there, it is very difficult for them to even hit you. On top of that, your armor is angled, so they're only going to be getting, either deck penetrations or overpens on your superstructure. Well, with the exception of the Yamato, overpenning your bow and stern plating. But regardless, you just don't want to be blindly aggressive. As you can see, our two ships at A are already through A. They didn't even capture it, which they probably wouldn't have had the chance, as we get semi-trolled again. That Yamato is not completely flat to us, but he is at an angle at which I have citadeled Yamatos in the past with this boat. And here again, we're just, kind of talking about that angle. A chunky salvo from the Yamato. He got a few decent, shells to go vertically in that ellipse circle. And now is when I'm kind of looking at our team's position. I'm just like, okay, what are we doing here? Why are the two ships in the back of the map, as we give the classic thumbs up to the two battleships who YOLO rushed in, didn't cap A, nor did they even trade for either of those two ships? But again, it's a free-to-play game. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made mistakes plenty. But if we're just, kind of talking about strategy and looking at things we could have done differently, maybe hold off and see what our carrier does, see what their team does, see what their team lineup is, right? A lot of this game is creating mismatches or, creating your own advantage. Every single ship has strengths. Every single ship has weaknesses. And Wargaming, in this update specifically, has done things to try and even further balance the game. Now, bad players, of course, are going to say that, wow, why did they have to nerf the Schlieffen and the Sumner? And it's like, well, if you constantly have to abuse overpowered mechanics in the game or overpowered ships, then I hate to break it to you, you probably are not a good player. But in the meantime, it was about this point in the game where I was thinking like, hey, I haven't even been using this HE. Now, it's kind of ingrained in me that I, target superstructure and switch to different, spots to aim at as we kind of look at our carrier's position, who backs up to the back of the map, which is just never great. And that is when we noticed that the Iwami took a little shot our way, shooting over a Napoli, over a broadside Schlieffen. And yeah, you guys wondered, a few people asked, it's like, hey Aaron, did you get kicked out of the CC program? And I guess they were asking that because I changed my patch. No, I changed my patch because I'm getting targeted like that. The guy is, people are shooting over other broadside players to try and hit me. I know I'm a CC, I create YouTube videos. Some people want that mantle on their trophy. But some days it would be nice to have the players shoot the people in front of them instead of me. And this is again why I am playing a bit more passive than some people would like. But if you notice, if you look at our team's position, I mean, we've already lost the game. They have 400 points in caps. Our two ships are sitting behind that island on A. They abandoned B, did absolutely nothing. But we're still going to try, and that defensive position that we put ourselves in allows us to do so. If you guys will notice, however, there are actually 4 battleships on our flank to our 3 ships. On top of that, the carrier is now, you can see, headed our way to try and drop us. You could make the argument that the carrier was on our side, making it 4 ships, but if you'll notice, his planes are actually in the middle. He actually did try to drop the destroyer in the opening minutes of the game, but you don't want to just back your carrier up to the back of the map. You want to place it in a position where you can quickly deploy your planes, get them on target, as fast as possible, as well as put your ship in a position to where you won't be, spotted unless, something like this happens where the enemy just breaks through on one side. But that's something you have to be aware of, right? Carrier players just back up and then throw out planes. Like, now you gotta kind of position yourself better. Even in a carrier, you still have to position your ship well. That is when our Yaguma goes down, and this game is all but determined. We have 25 points left. They have 650. I have 170,000 damage, and we still don't have a ship killed. I have no idea what our team did. You can see the 2 ships behind that island between A and B there. Guys, you can't just sit there and hope to spam somebody. It's actually ironic. You'll notice that Worcester there, who was kind of behind that island, waiting for battleships to come into his range, he actually gets second on our team. So, yeah, just a truly pathetic team performance, and I'm sorry, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to call a spade there. But you will notice the HE is actually doing her thing. So, if you get the Stalingrad in a position where, battleships are angled to you, make sure you switch to that HE. She is pretty fantastic. AP definitely on the broadside still. You could probably not switch to the HE much in this boat and still do really well. But if you'll notice, we take the high caliber there all the way up to 195 so far. Here, I probably could have turned around. There's nothing left to do in this game except for farm damage. But again, in this position with the wide turning circle of the Stalingrad, you can't really, make a turn without going dark. The problem is, with this build, you kind of have to, reposition and think about that reposition. Here, though, I actually remember getting just a little bit mad. Yeah, the midway was helping, but I don't even get that kill. Kills are irrelevant, truly, but it's just like, bro, come on. You couldn't attack the other ship, the only one that was in my gun range. You decide, whatever. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's just like, really? We couldn't get that last kill? But here we're sitting at a nice 216,000 damage, a few fires, a few plane kills. We have absolutely done our job. There was no point at which the destroyer was ever really close to us, except for maybe that opening minute, and, lobbing a shot at 19 kilometers. Even with the higher velocity of the Stalingrad is still, probably a low percentage shot, even though you should take those if you have them. But our guns were not faced the right way, and our side was overloaded. On top of that, you will now notice the Napoli is on our side, so a 5-on-1, this has now become basically a 5. It was 1 versus 17 to start as our battleship goes down, as well as our carrier. So just a truly abysmal performance, but it's the blue team, so it is what it is. But 230,000 nearly there, high caliber, a few fires there with the added HE, and that is the commander. We actually go over it in a little bit more detail. I like the new screen. 1758 with a over 1,000 or nearly 1,000 point differential between that and second place, which was that Worcester who was sitting behind the island there. So team, I hope let's do better next time. It is what it is. A GG's to the enemy team, right? I think that guy Wiggles actually sent me a message. It's like, hey, let's do a triple battleship or triple Stalingrad division. I was like, no, that's going to be broken. But the enemy team, sometimes On losses, you tend to blame your teammates more than you praise the enemy, but the enemy played well. They put their ships in the right positions. I just think our team could have done a bit better. But here's the commander we're running with our inspirations. We actually switched to Mimbelli. We did have Scott on there, but adding that much grouping to a ship that already has high Sigma is... you could make the argument either way. Like, yes, they should be laser beams, but RNG still has a factor in that. But there is Fear My Roar, the added grouping and dispersion there to make this thing a pure Stalinium, artillery powerhouse. I also like Lightful over Kuznetsov for that added reload, as well as the added concealment upon firing your guns, which is the main base perk there. There are modules quickly. I've already done many videos on the Stalingrad, but here is the Piece de Resistance, the HE shell, 14.7 reload there, 4,500 max damage with a 33% fire chance. I feel like we're getting fires, as we should. 33% is not that high, but it's high for Russian cruisers. So this ship is going to be a fierce at legendary tier. It is available for global. I think it's also in some crates. Somebody mentioned something about that. I'm not exactly sure. Hopefully one of my smarter commenters will learn as we go over or let us know in the comments. As we just kind of go over the stats there. She's a great ship overall. Pretty decent win rate. Maybe not the best XP in her. Pretty decent average damage. And you can see the CC potential damage there. 1.1 million potential damage average per game. So if if played correctly, she can absolutely attract and tank damage, which is kind of her role. She's basically a mini battleship, the 305mm guns, and you can see the armor profile here. But something you also want to watch out for, like we mentioned, is that Citadel. Absolutely massive. I remember we had a game a long time ago where I just got like 15 Citadels in a row with Des Moines and just abused a broadside Stalingrad. So make sure you pay attention to your angles as we go to the overview there. Superior AP pen, sure shot, with the higher shell velocity there, and then big and flammable. What that means is you get a 45-second fire as opposed to a 30-second fire. So half of a battleship fire there, which is 60 seconds. Just make sure, again, you're managing your damage cons as well as your heals. That is the video, guys. Let me know what you think of the blue team in that one. And let me know what you think of the buff Stalingrad. Will you be picking her up? I'm sure we'll have a bunch more videos, hopefully some wins in the upcoming future. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys have a great day. Hey, Aaron out. Peace.